Hey everyone, it's TheViper here and welcome to a new series where I take you through all the Age of Empires 2 civilizations and share my thoughts on what you can expect to see from each of them, how you might want to play them, and what to expect when facing them. A lot of people might look at the tech tree and assume a civilization just follows their description blindly, but that's not always the case. So we're looking at the civs from a competitive point of view, and to kick it off we're going to start with the Aztecs. It has been one of the best civs in the game for the last 15 years. Aztecs. Aztecs immediate straight drop up to the S tier. They've been probably the best Arabia Civ for 10 years, but it has recently fallen off a bit in popularity. This is also evident in the stats, as their overall win rate has slowly decreased over time as well. They seem to mostly struggle against civilizations with strong economies, good timings, or flexible tech trees, such as Malians and Vikings, while they perform extremely well against civilizations such as Bengalis, Koreans, and Saracens. Civs that simply don't have access to great cavalry options against the Eagle Warriors and struggle with their timings. Personally, I think Aztecs match up really well against, for example, Gujaras, as they simply don't have access to knights, just like the Bengalis. Overall, it is still a very scary civ, and many players, myself included, fear playing against them for a very good reason. In an open map such as Arabia, you will usually see Aztecs try to take initiative in the early game. I would do this with a small drush or man-at-arms opening, with an archery range follow-up where you mix in archers and skirmishers depending on what your opponent is making and how much control you're getting with the opening. If you go archers, I would add a slow trickle of Eagle Scouts simply to have an extra buffer and help protect your archers against skirmishers, and include spearmen to deal with scouts. Aztecs do get weaker as the feudal age goes on, however, especially against civs with bloodline scouts, so they will normally try to wall up and maybe use the market to sell resources in order to buy food to get to the castle age as soon as possible. This is the age where they also suddenly explode. A civilization bonus of 11% faster military production synergizes extremely well with the spam of Eagle Warriors, and it is incredibly hard to deal with, especially if the early game went well for the Aztecs. I would also mix in pikemen and skirmishers if needed, but most of the time you see a full Eagle Warrior commitment with some monks involved as well, as their monks are insane, with 5 extra HP per upgrade in the monastery. On top of that, you also generate more gold per relic garrisoned, so monks are never a wrong choice for the Aztecs. This approach is often enough to steamroll an opponent, and the game won't go to the Imperial Age very often. But if it does, the Aztecs still kind of just carry on doing the same thing. Elite Eagle Warriors are used to raid economy and flatten ranged unit compositions, with pikemen included versus cavalry compositions. Monks will be just as useful as before, as they also scale very well into the Imperial Age. You'll also sometimes see atlatl skirmishers if the situation calls for it, and very rarely champions or jaguar warriors to face infantry. I like to play Aztecs by taking control of the early game and then taking advantage of the power spikes hitting into early Castle Age and early Imperial Age. Ideally, you find yourself in an offensive situation with your eagles active on the map, where he feels the pressure and simply cannot afford to take a bad fight. Often the big eagle spam approach will boil down to one inevitable fight where that battle decides the winner of the game. On the other hand, you also don't want to find yourself committing to the full eagle spam and then ending up playing defensively. You're then in a position where you have to break out of the defense quite fast, because he most likely has a better economy behind it as well, as you normally would have either sold your starting 200 stone or built a tower, so the pressure is even bigger on you to force the issue as you're falling further and further behind economically. On more closed maps such as Arena or Black Forest, Aztecs can also be very strong. Usually here you'll skip the feudal age aggression and aim straight for the castle age, where in my opinion monks is almost always your go-to unit. They are the strongest monks in the game with their extra hit points, and you'll supplement them with some Eagle Warriors or Spearmen to fight off light cavalry, and or siege units to take down walls and buildings and really pile on the pressure. This can always be followed up with a fast Imperial Age to make your monks even better, and simply play a positional game where they will always lose the fight should they decide to commit, despite you having a worse economy behind. Should the game drag on, you can always fall back on a fairly competitive trash composition of pikemen and skirmishers, with monks and siege onagers, especially cost efficient should you have a couple of relics. Elite Eagle Warriors are always a fairly cheap option and a big threat to the opponent, so you can make that tech switch as the game goes on, should the situation call for it. On water maps, Aztecs are quite poor, so I would usually try to take... I'm trying to avoid saying usually so much. On water maps, Aztecs are quite poor, so I would suggest you take the fight to the land by avoiding straight up water fights. This is usually done with a hybrid approach of fire galleys to buy some time on water, while you simultaneously execute a landing, be it in feudal age with archers, or in castle age with a monk siege rush or simply eagle warriors. In the late game on water you can only rely on the fast fire ships, and I would probably also use some monks to support from the shoreline. Aztecs do have a great economy and are a threat nonetheless on almost any map, but they definitely shine on land. I find that timings and snowballs are their speciality, particularly with eagle warriors and monks. If I were to rank the civilization on land, water and closed maps, I would give it A tier on land, C tier on water and S tier on closed maps. And based on how they perform through the ages, I would give them S in Dark Age, B in Feudal Age, S in Castle Age and A in Imperial Age. I do hope you enjoyed this first competitive civ overview, and if you did, please do leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. The next civilization we're gonna do is the Teutons, but please let me know which civ you wanna see after that, and make sure not to miss any of my gameplay videos over on Daily TheViper. You can edit Daily TheViper here, maybe, hopefully. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.